This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are interviewing the head of Machon Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
Not a few converts have converted to Judaism as part of a search for truth, only to find that they don't really fit in spiritually and intellectually. Some, as a result, become disillusioned. Does the rabbi have any insights?
I consider this topic, which is based on many such examples of converts who report feeling this way. I consider this fact to be a very serious indictment of present-day Torah Judaism. The problem, I believe, stems from the fact that unfortunately, for many, if not most Jews, born Jews, who adhere to a Torah lifestyle, they keep the mitzvot, they study the Torah, they go to shul, etc., etc. Nevertheless, it must be said honestly that they are not truth-oriented. They're not searching for the truth necessarily of Judaism. They accept Judaism because that is what they were taught. They believe it, but the question of authenticity, of truth, of studying and delving into things and understanding them more deeply and doing things in the most correct and authentic manner is not really part of their agenda. What interests them more is being part of the group and fitting in with everybody else. And this is a very different experience for many converts. Of course, I refer here to sincere converts to Judaism, not people who choose to convert for ulterior motives such as marrying a Jewish man or a Jewish woman or other such motives. I'm talking about serious and sincere converts to Judaism who, very often coming from a Christian background, having been well versed in the Bible, and realizing that Christianity is simply a lie and a distortion of the Torah, of the Bible. Having reached this realization, they feel, sometimes after much deliberation, that they would like to convert to Judaism, even though, of course, no Gentile is required to convert to Judaism. On the other hand, we, the Jewish people, should make it our business to make conversion as user-friendly, as pleasant, and as positive an experience as possible. But this is not, unfortunately, what many of these people find. What they find is that they are taught by the rabbis, by the communities in which they find themselves, where they go through the conversion process and where they often reside after having converted. They discover that they are told, you must act in this manner according to this halachic position, this custom, this way of doing things, and you must not deviate. You are not allowed to deviate from this in any way, even though many such converts, often being people who are quite capable of studying the sources, become aware before too long that there are other opinions and other ways of doing things according to Torah Judaism. Again, we're not discussing anything to do with Reform or Conservative Judaism. We're not discussing any position which is not based on authentic and unassailable Torah sources. We're talking about Torah true Judaism. For instance, it was related to me recently that a certain convert in the United States, who was going through a conversion process in a Ashkenazi community with Ashkenazi rabbis, he was once spied, so to speak, in the shul, wearing his talit in what they consider an unusual manner. I can add parenthetically that the meaning here is that he was not wearing his talit like most Ashkenazim wear a talit, draped over the shoulder, but in a what we could call a more Temani or perhaps Faradi style, where the talit is worn more like a shawl, and it's wrapped from the back forward to envelop the person, which of course both ways of wearing a talit are quite acceptable. He was spied wearing his talit in such a manner, and he was also seen to be davening from a Temani, a Yemenite Sidur. The rabbis in short order called him over and informed him in no uncertain terms that if you are not willing to swear to us here and now that you will now and henceforth forevermore, before, during and after your conversion, if you do not swear that you will always pray according to the nusach of the Ashkenazim and follow Ashkenazi psak halacha and customs in all regards, in all things, and attend only an Ashkenazi shul for the rest of your life, then we are telling you now that we will not convert you. This convert, a very serious, intelligent person, told the rabbis that, well, I'm a bit surprised, but I understand perhaps that you are concerned about confusion and a lack of unity here in the community, so I have no problem in taking upon myself such a commitment as long as I live here amongst you and in your community, but I intend to, after the conversion, at some point I intend to move away, and move to Israel and become part of a Temani community, and there it would be my intention to act according to Temani practices and Temani halacha and daven from a Temani sidur, etc. And they repeated to him what they had said initially. They said, if that's the case, if you do not drop all these ideas immediately, we will under no circumstances convert you. That is one anecdotal but absolutely true story with which I became familiar recently. Some people may think, as I also originally thought myself, that this was what I consider to be an outrageous and shocking phenomenon, but I considered it initially to be a specifically Ashkenazi phenomenon. In other words, that there are Ashkenazi Rabbanim who apparently find it impossible to conceive of the fact that there are Jews who are good, sincere Jews who live according to the Torah, but not according to Ashkenazi practices in all regards, but according to perhaps Faradi or Temani or some other system, all based on authentic Torah sources, of course. And then I heard about another case where exactly the same thing happened, but to another convert who was going through the conversion process in a Sfaradi community with Sfaradi Rabbanim, and they said to him exactly the same thing. So what we have here, unfortunately, is a endemic and systematic problem in the Jewish world. Too many Jews feel that there is only one right way to do things. And this actually, first of all, affects all Jews. It essentially forces all Jews to fit into a certain mold, which many Jews have accepted upon themselves, and it shuts down all possibility of searching, learning, asking serious questions in order to get serious answers. And it turns people off from Torah, or at the very least it shuts down their faculty of critical thought. Sometimes it shuts down their ability to think at all altogether. In the case of the convert, this same phenomenon applies, but even more so. Because in the eyes of some of these people, some of these rabbis and some other Jews from birth, a convert is only legitimate if he does and acts exactly as I do, which of course is outrageous because, as we have pointed out elsewhere, in Judaism there has always been room for different views within the world of Torah, within the halachic system. There have always been different opinions from the time of Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel and down to the present day. This approach that there is only one way of doing things, one way to be a God-fearing, Torah-observant Jew, is very damaging to Judaism in general and to converts specifically. After all, why should a convert of any background feel some sentimental connection to Ashkenazi minhagim, the way Jews did things in Poland or Russia or Hungary. You could also ask the question in reverse: why should he feel any connection to the customs and the practices and the halakha as practiced by Sephardi Jews or Temani Jews? And that's an equally legitimate question. And the answer is that a convert does not have to feel any connection to any of these systems. He has to adopt for himself a teacher, a Rav, just as the Mishnah tells us, Aselech HaRav, who will direct him, who will guide him, to whom he can address questions, etc., just as every Jew is required to do. And he will follow the system that is right for him, just as every Jew is entitled and is in fact required to do. There is not one way in Judaism, there are many ways. I'm talking again, I stress, not about any system or outlook which is in any way opposed to the essentials, the fundamentals of Torah Judaism. I speak of different positions, different approaches, different halachic opinions within the realm of Torah. Obviously, no reasonable person would claim that it is wrong for a Jew to follow the opinion, for example, of the Rambam, even though most Jews perhaps today, or most Jews in a given community, on that same issue follow not the view of the Rambam, but the view of Rabbeinu Tam, or vice versa. And the same can be said about any number of pair of Chachamim that one would choose to mention. This approach causes widespread disillusionment in the Jewish world, not just for converts, but in fact for many Jews who themselves are thinking, intelligent people, who are turned off by this closed-minded and unintellectual approach. It was once said to me by someone that a friend of his told him that when he was learning in a certain yeshiva in the United States, he noted that all the really intelligent, more brilliant students in the yeshiva, after a few years, chose to leave the yeshiva and go into some other academic field, and not to continue studying Torah for many years into the future. Whereas those who actually chose to stay and study in the yeshiva environment for many years were usually not the brightest of the bunch. And the reason for this, I responded, was that the Torah world today is not set up, unfortunately, for those who actually like to think. For a convert who arrived at Judaism as part of a search for truth and authenticity, and the same also applies to a Jew, born as a Jew, who wishes to understand Judaism in a more profound way, wishes to be able to ask questions without feeling that he is a criminal, without receiving the clear message that we don't like people who ask good questions. And this is unfortunately the atmosphere in the majority of the Torah world today. For such people, Judaism, unfortunately, can be the Jewish world, the Torah world, the Jewish community, can be a somewhat depressing place. There's not enough room for the individual who wishes to think, who wishes to learn, who wishes to know about the different opinions, not just the way we paskin, the way we do things, but what are the different views and what are the different positions, and why are there these different views, and why did someone decide that this is the way that we do things and not some other way? Although these questions apply to all Jews, they have a particular impact on converts because some Jews, in their narrow-mindedness, tend to question the legitimacy of the conversion of a person who converted but acts in a way which is different from themselves. This is most unfortunate and in fact very tragic, and the remedy can only be to return to the true way and approach to the study of Torah, which is open-minded, learning all the sources, not being afraid to ask questions, just as we see in the Talmud itself. I recall that on the first day of my yeshiva studies, when I was 17 years old, in a post-high school yeshiva, our teacher, the very first day, told us the following. He said, when you study Gemara, you have to be an apikoros. In other words, he said, when Abaye says something in the Talmud, you have to understand why he said it. And you have to be convinced that it is so. And if you're not convinced, you have to ask why. Perhaps it's not so. Why is that idea correct? Maybe I could have thought something else. You cannot just accept things on faith. You have to ask and you have to understand. That is what our teacher told us on the very first day. And that is something that I have never forgotten, and it would be a good thing indeed if all Jews were to remember this idea, starting right now.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. A word to our viewers. If you would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with Rabbi Bar-Hayim in honor or memory of a loved one, or if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz-Yisraeli, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.